Welcome to Season 4 of The Armchair Athletes on CMRU.ca.
We're here to talk to 4 major American sports leagues. Your favorite sports show on CMRU.ca.
With Clayton.
Give me a break. You guys have proven nothing.
Taylor.
Like, if you ever want to get rid of him, you're never going to get anything for him.
Terrell.
Every team plays at that stadium. The Orioles have to hit to the same wall, too.
And Will.
Every week, there's a new report that's like, Miami is the top suitor for Damian Lillard.
Hello, everyone. I'm Clayton Yates. Today, I have the pleasure of getting to interview a former WWE superstar from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, who was a 2-time WWE Tag Team Champion and now works as a producer for the WWE, TJ Wilson, formerly known as Tyson Kidd. TJ, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing really well, thanks. I'm sorry, I'm a little run down. We just had the Royal Rumble. I'm just getting over a head cold, but I'm good. I'm very good. How are you doing, Clayton?
I'm doing great as well. So you mentioned the Royal Rumble, and a few years back, you had a memorable Royal Rumble moment yourself, where you took an attitude adjustment from Hornswoggle in the Royal Rumble. Whose idea was that, and how did you react when you found out about the idea?
I'm not sure whose idea it was, but when it was laid out to me, I just was talking about this recently because that clip popped up and I was sharing it to some friends, again, as I had 14 years ago. But sorry, I have a little cat up here. I don't know who laid it out. I don't remember. I think maybe Jamie Noble's the one who told me about the idea. I don't know who originally who it came from, but I was talking about this the other day. If I'm not going to win the Royal Rumble and if I'm not going to be one of those Iron Men that's going to be in there for 40 minutes or something or an hour, then just help me make somebody else have a moment. And Hornswoggle still we're very good friends. And to this day, he still talks about that day and me taking the attitude adjustment from him. And just the fact that I did it with a smile on my face. I had no problems doing it. If we're going to make a moment, let's make a moment.
For sure. I just wanted to, as well, just kind of flash back to the start of your wrestling career. You performed on a WWF house show when you were 16 years old. How do you get booked for that at that age?
That was a very rare, very unique circumstance. Teddy Hart, his brother had passed away from flesh-eating disease in the summer of 1996 at 13 years old. And so somehow through that, Davey Boy was talking with Carl DeMarco, and somehow, some way, this idea of us having a match at the Saddle Dome as a tribute to Matt, somehow, it's crazy that it even was thought of, and then that it actually even came to reality. And Harry's in that match. Harry's 11 years old. It was crazy. I remember thinking when I first heard about it, I remember thinking this is way too good to be true. It's absolutely not going to happen. And then as it got closer, it was no, it's happening now. And I just remember, so that's kind of how it came about, was just somehow Davey and at the time the president of WWE Canada, Carl DeMarco, they brainstormed the idea somehow and I guess just bogarted it through.
What was the match itself like? Was there big spots in it, or?
Yeah. So we weren't good wrestlers. Obviously, we're kids. But what we could do, we would go and we would choreograph a match. But we couldn't really adjust much on the fly or kind of go with the flow a little bit. So anyway, we had this. I don't know what we thought, but we had probably a 10 or 12 minute match plan. And when we got there, they told us we had 5 minutes. And so I remember we were terrified and we were what do we do? And we're okay, let's just run through what we have. And then let's just try to do it really fast. And when they say that we have to go to the finish, then we'll just go to the finish no matter where we are. But yeah, there's definitely big moves in there. There's Ted gets back suplexes me on my head twice, back to back. There are two different things, but we kind of we kind of messed it up. And the finish to the match is Ted and I did it. Ted superplexed me off the top rope. I'm so sorry. And Harry hit me with a headbutt off the other corner. So, I mean, as an 11-year-old kid, Harry's doing a headbutt off the top rope as the finish of this WWE house show match in Calgary in '96. It was insane.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I was going to as well talk about before you were signed to WWE, I did some research, and you wrestled a match at the halftime of a Calgary Stampeders game.
That was right before my tryout. That was like 3 weeks before my tryout. Man, I got frostbite on my back in that match.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a little bit.
What was kind of the crowd reaction at? Because obviously, like, it's a crowd that's like there to like watch football. Was that like kind of intimidating to go out in front of, especially a big crowd like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. And you're absolutely right. When you go out to like a crowd that isn't there for the thing you're about to do, you never know what that reaction might be. You know what I mean? I remember I was getting ready for my tryout. I'd just come home from England, and the people running Stampede Wrestling at the time, Bill Bell, who passed away last year, unfortunately, I remember he said, "Hey, we have this show at the Stampeders Blue Bombers game at halftime," and I think at one point it was going to be a tag match or something, and then but they had advertised like a title match, and Apocalypse, who later became Rick Victor in WWE, he was the champion. And so it was against me. It was so funny. We came out in jerseys. Like I came out in a Stampeders jersey, and he came out in a Blue Bombers jersey. I'm sorry. Backtrack a little bit. It was really terrible weather. It was like freezing rain, or like frozen rain. It was kind of snowing. It was weird. But I think like half or a third of the actual tickets sold for the game actually showed up. Like the traffic was, the weather was terrible. The traffic was terrible. So I was already kind of, the weather was real bad. I knew that like maybe half the people had shown up. So I knew like hopefully it wasn't the unruly ones that were going to lambaste us. But no, we came out. I remember getting a nice reaction. I'm coming out with the Stampeders jersey, but they told us backstage that like we weren't keeping the jerseys, so we couldn't wrestle in them, that we had to take them off. But like after the match, they give me the jersey. I would have much preferred to wrestle in it. It was Stampede Wrestling used like a different type of canvas, not like how WWE uses, more of like almost like a tent, like the same kind of like. Anyway, so my point is like the snow and the rain just sat on top of the ring. It didn't absorb in. I was sliding all over the place. Oh wow! It was crazy in there, and we did this little 5-minute match or something, and it was freezing. It was cold. Like I said, I got a little bit of frostbite on my back. That was about 3 weeks before my tryout.
What part of the stadium was it set up? Was it in the end zone, or was
Yeah. They set up the ring in the end zone.
Okay.
But you know what? The people reacted because they could watch on this big screen. Because I remember one point like selling or whatever, and I was like, oh, okay, got it. Like they were reacting to everything we were doing, and then like there was a nice reaction on the finish too. And obviously, I came out of the Stampeders jersey, but it did feel cool to wrestle at McMahon Stadium. Honestly, it was really cool.
Yeah, I imagine it would have been as someone from Calgary too.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So before you made your debut in WWE, of course, once you got to the main roster, quickly formed the Hart Dynasty with your childhood friend, Harry Smith.
Yeah.
And, like, did you see yourself as more of a singles star before debuting, or did you see yourself as more of a tag team guy?
That's a really good question. Because at the time, in FCW, I was in FCW for about 2 years, or I was in developmental, I guess, for almost 2 years, like April or March 2007, and I got called up in February 2009. So just shy of 2 years. In those 2 years, I did tag team stuff and I did singles stuff. Like I won the FCW title, like a singles title, but I was also tag team champions in FCW with Harry too. So I've done a bit of both. So At the time, I probably wanted to prove myself a little bit as singles, but I knew like with my size and stuff, I just knew that the strength in numbers would help me to not like I'm in this tag team with Harry looking to launch for, and I'm just looking down the road at me being a singles guy. But if that's what ends up happening, cool. But the truth is, I really love tag team wrestling. I think there's so many different dynamics and different things that can happen in a tag team match that are exciting to me and that interest me, that I definitely over that span of time developed into like a pretty decent tag team wrestler, I think.
Yeah, getting back to like when you started in WWE, you had success upon arriving with the Hart Dynasty. You guys won the tag team championships within a year. When you did win the tag team titles from The Miz and Big Show, how much did that accomplishment mean to you at the time?
Man, that to me, like that kind of cemented my career right there. To win title in WWE was such a pipe dream as a kid, and especially my very first match ever, I teamed up with Harry in the summer of 1995. So nearly 15 years later, in 2010, to win the tag team titles in WWE on Raw. Man, I'd say it was a dream come true, but like I don't even think I could like actually like see that dream. Almost like it felt like it was too out of reach, you know, when I'm like a 18-year-old kid, or when I was having my first match, to think like, okay, imagine like if I were to somehow pause time and tell that 15-year-old that's walking to the ring in Rockyford, Alberta, hey, in 15 years from now, you're going to be walking to the ring with this same guy, except it's going to be in Richmond, Virginia, and you're going to win the WWE tag team titles from, he'd already debuted at the time at the Giant in WCW. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't believe that. If you'd stopped and told me that day, I would know that you're an absolute liar. But that's exactly what ended up happening. It was surreal, man, to be able to accomplish that with Harry and with Natty and Bret. It was awesome, man. I couldn't, for myself personally, I couldn't have written a better story to winning my first tag team championship.
And then when you guys were wrestling as the Hart Dynasty, that was right around when Bret made his return to WWE as well. And you got to work alongside him on TV. And I know like you were around him a lot growing up, but what did you learn from getting to work with him on TV as well?
Yeah, man, I got to learn a lot of really just. Bret's taught me a lot of really good lessons over the years, and even still. I mean, I shouldn't say even still, but still to this day, we talk all the time. His brain, the way he sees wrestling, the way he sees this is he's very like small detail oriented, which those small details make up the bigger picture. So I learned a lot from Bret, just how he kind of carries himself and how he kind of constructs things. Because we had a few tag matches we did one at MSG, a 6-man tag against Nexus, and we wrestled the Nexus on the second half of the European tour. We probably did 4 or 5 tag matches, something like that. And it just was so much fun, man, to be in there with Bret in Germany, where like, you know, those German fans like truly have a different connection with Bret, and to be in these 6-man tags with Bret, it was, I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about just kind of being in the moment. Because I know like when we were doing these matches, I know like Bret, you know, there's a part of Bret that definitely never expected to be back wrestling, and especially be back in a WWE ring in Germany, you know what I mean? So like I just learned kind of it's much easier said than done, but to just live in that moment.
Yeah. You guys also were the first ones to hold the tag titles that some people say looked like pennies.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that design?
So I'll tell you why. Of course, I like them because we debuted them. So every time I'd see them, I'd know we were the first team that ever had them. But I do understand anytime you change a title, it's going to be tricky because especially if it's a design that's really nice prior. I mean, I'm sure everyone's going to think every kind of design is nice. Every title's going to be somebody's favorite design, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But like to switch a title out for a new one is always going to be a bit of a shock. And especially like, because we had those 2 sets of tag team titles, and the SmackDown ones, they looked a lot like the old, like Demolition tag team titles, Hart Foundation tag team titles. Not exactly the same, but they were similar.
Like the ones that kind of resemble the SmackDown ones today.
Yes, exactly. Kind of like how they look today. And the Raw ones almost look like that first Undisputed title a little bit. I felt like I could be remembering completely wrong. I could be way off on this, but I felt like that. And then you go from that to, these copper ones, like you said, that people call the pennies, the big giant pennies. It's gonna be a bit of a shock, but for me personally, I liked it. Just the idea that we were the ones that debuted it. We were actually supposed to have a match with Big Show. With Mark Henry and Evan Bourne that day, and like time was getting cut. And then so they were sending us to the ring, and we just did the segment where they give us the new titles. But we were supposed to win a match. Dan Brett was supposed to come out and present the titles, but there's no time. The match got scrapped. But they couldn't find Brett and Gorilla, and then they just Armies of Kid, and we went out. So we went out there, and I hadn't seen Brett and Gorilla because Brett still thought we had like a match still. So I just remember being in the ring and just thinking like, I hope Brett comes out here right now. I mean, and he did, but because we were with the guest hosts at that time. I remember Charlie Day was one of them. I can't remember the other guys, but I just remember taking pictures with them. They want to take pictures with us after. I think like they thought like we just became champions right then and there, so they wanted to take pictures with us afterwards or whatever. Yeah.
When the Hart Dynasty split, did you guys feel at the time like it was too soon, or did you guys feel like you had already peaked as a team?
No, so that's a great question, and there are definitely many schools of thought of that. When I found out that we were losing the tag team titles, I had a conversation with Harry, and I just said, "Hey, once we lose these titles, there's a good chance that we just and I'm not above doing it, but we might just be used to kind of put over these other tag teams and I have no problem with it. We had a few matches with Cody and Drew at that time. I said and I just was like, maybe we should now wrestle each other a little bit and do single stuff. And Harry said, yeah, I agree. He wanted to do it too. So then I gave him the choice. He said, do you want to be the babyface or the heel? And then he picked babyface. So then I went and pitched it to Vince that we turn on each other, that I turn on Harry. And I had a real elaborate plan laid out, maybe too elaborate that it didn't quite get put through. But I talked to Bret, and he was like, we had TV coming up in Calgary. We didn't do the turn there. We did the turn a month later, or 3 weeks later or something. But I wanted to have it where Bret's in there, and I end up kicking Bret in the stomach and putting him in a figure 4 on the post. And Bret was cool with it, but I think, like I said, I think it was a little too far. I think it might have been. I might have pitched it a little too high at the time.
That would have got you pretty badly booed out of the building in Calgary.
Yeah, shit. It would have been awesome.
Yeah, it would have. I was going to ask you, I guess kind of continuing on with competing in Calgary here.
Yeah.
I remember going to an event in 2011. You wrestled Trent Beretta.
Oh, well, you were there.
You got a huge ovation. How much fun was it for you to always come back to Calgary and wrestle?
So much fun. I watch that match a couple times a year for sure. I love wrestling Trent Beretta. He's so fun. We were together in FCW, and we had good matches in FCW. We had better matches, on the B or C shows, whatever, on Superstars. We had a couple, I guess, on SmackDown too, some tag match with the Dude Busters. But man, that match in Calgary was so fun. It was, and I have a little B story to that show as well. But I expected that I would be cheered, but also I was a heel, so I didn't know how how much, but Calgary really showed me some love that night. That was awesome. That was so much fun. I you know, that match holds a lot of water for me, and it's a lot due to the crowd. The crowd really helped make that match. They really put it over the top for me. The funny thing is, originally, and it got switched, but originally it was going to be, that was on NXT. Later on SmackDown, it was going to be myself and Natty against Johnny Curtis and Caitlyn. But except the problem is Johnny Curtis and Caitlyn were supposed to be baby faces. And I remember talking to somebody and saying, this is before the Trent match happened. And I said, well, I don't know it's really going to help them as baby faces because we're going to get cheered in Calgary. I don't know to what extent. We're going to get cheered a little bit. We got cheered 2 years prior, not fully cheered. That's the power of Jeff Hardy. But when we did that SmackDown match in Edmonton with Jeff Hardy, Harry and I, we were getting cheered a lot too. And we were like full on heels, let alone, and that's in Edmonton, let alone actually being in Calgary. And I guess somebody came to their senses because that one would have been so rough for Caitlyn and Johnny Curtis. It wouldn't have been fair, but it would have been brutal. Them being baby faces against Natty and I in Calgary that same day as that Trent match. Like, there's no way. It would not have gone. Wouldn't have ended nicely. They wouldn't have been good. I guarantee it would have been scrapped, and we would have to go redo it again the next week when we were wherever we were.
Yeah. Did you like working as a bad guy or good guy better?
Oh man, I like both. So what'll happen with me before would be like I'd do one for a while, and then I'd almost get not bored of it, but almost the challenge of doing the other side of it. And then I do that for a while, and because I change a lot of I change certain moves and certain like philosophies when I'm one or the other. So like I don't do as cool stuff when I'm a baby face, and I do more aggressive stuff when I'm a bad guy, when I'm a heel. So I would there was a little period of time where like on the live events I was wrestling as a baby face. And then at TVs, I was a heel, so I was kind of getting both of them out of my system at the same time. I remember having these matches with Daniel Bryan at that time, where we would treat it like it was good guy versus good guy, and he knew I was going to turn on him at some point in the match, and I knew, but we didn't know where exactly we would do it, and we would try to. I told him like, hey, look, I don't have any heat. I'm not booked as this big heel on TV at the moment at all. So my heat will be what we can convince them of here tonight in Hershey, Pennsylvania, for example. What can we convince them tonight? If you and I wrestle and we keep wrestling, and it's like showmanship, like good sportsmanship, we keep wrestling. When I finally turn on you, I'm turning on them a little bit, and we'll get some heat rather than expecting that I'm going to come out to this heat. I'm not going to get that, but I can get it in the match. And so like, I have a lot of fond memories of during that time, like 2011, wrestling like those like Shrimp Brett. I wrestled Brett a lot on NXT and Superstars at that time in 2011. But wrestling live events with Daniel Bryan, I had a lot of fun with him.
I was going to kind of circle back to the Hart Dynasty here.
Yeah.
Was there ever any plans to reform the Hart Dynasty?
Ah, that's a good question. I mean, not that I know of. I don't remember ever talking about just like Harry and I teaming again. That is funny, and I've never even thought of it for some weird reason. But yeah, that's a great question. No one ever brought it up to me, and for whatever weird reason, I never really thought of it, and I don't really know why.
Yeah, I was going to ask you as well. So you wrestled in NXT when it transitioned from being the game show competition to being developmental for WWE. And at the time, they presented your character as if you kind of had like a chip on your shoulder and had to work your way almost kind of back to the main roster. How did you view it at the time? And did you feel like you had something to prove?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely always felt, especially in that time, I definitely had a healthy one, not an unhealthy one, but a chip on my shoulder that I had something to prove. Every time I wrestled, I felt like I had something to prove at the time, for sure. That NXT run, it was funny because it kind of like organically happened. So I was on that very first one at Full Sail, the first TV, and that's kind of what got me in Money in the Bank that year, was that match with McGillicuddy, Curtis Axel.
Yeah.
So that match is what got me in Money in the Bank, and then 2012 was rolling pretty good, and then I tore my knee on the Christmas loop, and then after I tore my knee after surgery and recovery, I kind of re-debuted on the main roster again, and then I was kind of like back to floating, and then NXT stuff just happened, and I texted the writer at NXT and just said like, hey, I'm gonna come by tomorrow. If you want to use me, cool, and if you don't, that's cool too. But I like the vibe and I like the energy there. And it's funny, he texted me back and just said, okay. He said, all right, sounds good, TJ. So I text the writer. He said, yeah, no problem, it's cool, you can come. He said, cool, I look forward to seeing you. The next day, he didn't text me back and say like, oh, you're in this match or whatever. So I just figured, okay, well, I'm not in a match. And I remember training legs and then going to the show. And as I pulled up, Larry Zbyszko would always be there with Terry Taylor, and so like they're outside in the parking lot talking. And I pull up, and I see Terry, and he said, "Hey TJ, I got your match today," which was news to me. And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "Yeah, it's you and Mason Ryan. You guys have about 6 minutes, probably about 4 for the match." So I'm thinking like, Mason Ryan's like 260 pounds of muscle. And then Terry said, yeah, Hunter wants you over pretty strong. And I was like, what? And then I kind of explained a little bit of the story to me about how I'm a babyface, but maybe eventually I kind of turn heel. And then, but he didn't like lay out like, oh, here's this thing you're going to do, and then it's going to end here. It just was like, hey, this is the start of like, Hunter just sees this. Maybe he just likes your aggression as a heel. Man, and then it was like never like laid out the way that you just laid it out, but that's how the story just took place. It just kept. I remember like the match with Adam Rose, I really like down there. I remember they're like, hey, we want to see him be really aggressive, and I was good at pulling that out of people, pulling whatever the company was looking for. I could kind of help pull out of them, yeah. And like Adam Rose and I had they wanted an aggressive match, and that's what they got out of him. And he did a great job. And I just remember like things just kept happening. But the way you just laid it out is true. That is the way it became. Is like, I'm the guy that's coming down there to earn my spot to get back to the main roster. And I know I say it in the promo with Neville for when I'm challenging him for the title or whatever, but it was never laid out like that. Like, hey, you're going to keep doing this thing. You're chasing the title. It just kind of kept happening, if that makes sense. And Hunter may have had it laid out that way, and I just learned about these beats week by week. But the crazy thing about NXT at that time is we'd film 4 episodes in a day. So then, like, some of those tapings, I talked with like Breeze and Neville and Sammy. I talked with them about it. Like, there was times that we were having 4 matches in just over 3 hours. Like that.
How's the crowd reacting when they see you come out for like the 4th time?
Dude, so that's where I said I came up with coming out with headphones, because there was one time my theme song played 7 times in a little over 3 hours, and I'd heard it enough. Done. I was done.
And you ended up like main eventing the first 2 takeovers. You and Natty had some great matches on the first ever NXT takeover. Is it crazy, like, when you think of how far NXT is like, I guess, evolved since then?
Oh yeah, man, it's insane. I remember way before the takeovers, like in 2012. I remember I did NXT, and then I was up in Canada. So NXT didn't air on TV here in America, but it did in Canada at the time. And I remember I was home up in Canada for a week, and I saw an episode of NXT, and I just remember being like, oh, wow, this looks so cool. Because it's like, I remember telling Hunter, like, I said, Hunter, the NXT, this thing's really cool. It's this, like, WWE production in this smaller, intimate setting. I was like, it's a really cool duality of the two worlds combining. And he told me, he said, yeah, it's only going to get bigger and better from here. And I mean, he had a vision. And he obviously, I didn't know his vision, but it was unbelievable. The fact that like Natty and I are on that first takeover, I'm on that second takeover, and then like a few takeovers later, that takeover Brooklyn is like off the charts.
Yeah,
They're selling out Brooklyn. That was insane. And it was such a cool time. It was cool for me to be a part of like this like younger generation like coming up, and I just like for some reason I'm just a part of it too. But like it was like myself, Sammy, Neville, Breeze, and then like the women were really coming up at that time with like Paige, Emma, Natty,
yeah,
Charlotte, and then like Sasha, Bailey, Becky, of course. It just was really, it was a really cool thing that all these things were kind of happening at once. And then like then that tag team division there started coming up with like Kalisto and Sin Cara and the Vaudevillains and Ascension. And so it was just really cool pairing of like this heavyweight division, or like the world title division, the women's division, the tag division, all rising at the exact same time is what it felt like. It was awesome. It was I wish I'd been a part of more of their, like that San Jose show. I wasn't on that show. I remember Cesaro and I really trying our hardest to get on that San Jose show. We tried.
Was that the one that was the first time they went on the road?
The first time we went on the road was Columbus. I did do that one. I wrestled Baron Corbin there. But San Jose was the one they did the day before WrestleMania in San Francisco. And I think it's the first time I think Sasha and Charlotte might main event it. Might be the first like women main event at that time. And I remember it was like something like 7,000 people were there. And it was like, I remember just seeing results that it was like the people were nuts. And I was like, I want to be on that show. So I wanted to be on that show so badly.
Yeah. So I guess you mentioned Cesaro. You and him formed a pretty exciting and successful tag team in 2014. What made that pairing work so well, and whose idea was it to pair you guys up as a team?
Man, I would like to know who gets credit for thinking of us as a team. We had that triple threat with Dolph. Myself, Cesaro, and Dolph a few weeks prior on SmackDown in Liverpool, which again is another favorite match of mine personally that I watch from time to time, and I really enjoy a lot of the intricacies in that match. Not by me, even by Dolph and Cesaro, but I don't know if like somebody saw a little bit of chemistry there in that triple threat or what. But anyway, there was a graphic. Either the night before or on that Monday, it was like tag team gauntlet match, and Cesaro and I were on the graphic, and that was literally how we found out. That was how I found out. And I remember Cesaro's smart, man. Claudio's a smart guy. He's very smart. I think it was for the app at the time. We were doing a lot of like interviews and stuff, promos and stuff on the app. And one of the guys suggested that Cesaro and I get in a little bit of an argue, like maybe I'm arguing with Natty, Cesaro steps in, and then Cesaro and I kind of argue. And Cesaro, he had good long-term thinking. He was like, wait a minute, if we end up becoming a team and we're arguing on day one, he didn't like that chemistry. He said, what if it looks like I'm stepping in, but like TJ and I both are like side up against Natty.
Okay.
And then I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's more heat for me. I love it. The fans love Natty. I was like, this heat for me is great. I'll take it every time. So that's what we did. And then we did Cesaro, we talk about it sometimes, but we did little double team things or like little cheating things in that match without like having to talk about it or communicate. Like he just like took the ref, and I just knew, all right, I'm going to just do one shot and get out. And then we talked about it after. He's like, man, he's like, I love that I took the ref and just threw one shot. Some guys get carried away, and then it like starts to take away the heat, and the ref has to look stupid to not catch it. If you just do one shot, it logically makes sense. I don't know, just our philosophy. And we were good friends before that, but we became really good friends during that our time as a team for sure. I mean, we talk to this day, and I always will. We'll always be really, really good friends, always, no matter what.
Yeah. I guess to circle back to Natty as well, you've been with her entire career from the start to where she is now.
Yeah.
What's it been like for you to watch the impact that she's had on the business?
Man, it's way more incredible than definitely way more incredible than my own in-ring career. But just to see that, like this June, I'll have not wrestled for 10 years.
Wow.
This will be my 30th year in the wrestling business. Natty's been wrestling for 22 years, and she's like still going. She's indestructible or something. I don't know. She hurt her ankle a couple of years ago and had surgery, but like the surgeon, very like renowned surgeon, he was like, wow, you blew away all my recovery times I've ever had. She was totally healed in 3 weeks. It was crazy. She's a freak. It's so fun and so fulfilling for me to see her career and just to see, I mean, whether it's, her performance at the Royal Rumble on Saturday, or it's a match, or if it's a match with Ivy Nile on main event, either way, it's still, each match Natty has is just another notch on this legacy of she has like the most matches in WWE history for a woman, and it's not even close. And I don't know, and the fact that she's still going, and things will change, but at the moment, like, our schedule is so different than what it used to be 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that I don't even know if it's possible to catch Natty's numbers now. The way the schedule is now, there's no way. You'd have to wrestle here for 40 years.
And you'd probably have to like almost go injury free.
Yes, and then that's the other X factor: injury free, no burnout, and just no getting fired. She's crazy. Her work ethic is just different. She never when she resigned over the summer and she had the summer off, she enjoyed it, but she didn't like it. She's a workaholic. She's absolutely a workaholic, and it's been amazing for me to see her career, especially from this side of things, and especially I was the one who trained her from the beginning, so I've seen her progression from day one till today, and the fact that upstairs in our office she has 6 Guinness Book of World Records up there is crazy to me. It's so crazy.
And you mentioned how this June it'll be 10 years since you wrestled your last match. You have found, though, a role since becoming a performer as well, being a producer in WWE. When you were a superstar, did you ever have thoughts about getting into the business once your career was over?
I thought about maybe training people. I trained people before. When I was in Calgary, I trained people. And when I was in developmental, I helped a lot of people, like the Bella Twins and stuff. I helped a lot of people that hadn't wrestled before. So I knew I could train people. So that was kind of what I thought. But what's so funny is I got called up in February of 2009. And we had this match. Harry and I had this match with Crime Time once at a live event somewhere in June or early July, something. July. It was July. And Jericho, this is a funny story, but Jericho got to the live event a little bit late. And as he got there, we were on first, and he got there during our match. And he just was he was watching it, and when we got to the back, he was like, guys, he's like, that match was awesome. He said, great job. And we switched it up. We got heat on Shad that day, and JTG made the comeback or whatever. And then when Crime Time left, and maybe even Harry left, but no, it was both Harry and I. Chris pulled us aside and said, hey, he said, I've never seen them have a match that good. He's like, you guys figured out the formula with those guys. And sometimes it's just a matter of putting the ego aside a little bit to kind of figure out how it works. And then you can put the ego back in a little bit on certain little things. But so I remember Chris was so funny. He said, hey, I have a match with when Crime Time ended up getting that SummerSlam match with Jericho and Big Show. Chris came up to me and asked me if I was going to be at SummerSlam. We had another match with Crime Time. We had a TV match with them where they beat us that day. And then now they're the number one contenders. That's what it is. They were in Baltimore. And Chris came and he said, "Hey, are you going to be at SummerSlam?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, do you mind if I ask for you to be there? Because he said, I want you to like help agent my match." And I was like, this is July 09. So March, April, May, June. I've been on the main roster for 5 months. And then I was like, whatever you need. And then, he didn't need that. But then probably about the next year or the year after, probably like 2010 for sure, Johnny started talking about like, down the road I'd be a producer. Down the road I'll be a producer. And I'd always tell him, no, I'm going to do this. And then you guys won't see me. I'm going to go do this I'll go train people, but we'll have a good relationship. You guys won't see me. But I was proven very wrong. Actually, another funny one, Jericho. One time I was driving to go do NXT or something. And Jericho, he asked me he said, "Have you ever wrestled Johnny Curtis, Fandango?" And this is before that WrestleMania match. And I said, "Yeah." And I told him a story about a match that we'd had on NXT. And he said, "Send me the link." I sent him the link. And the match is like maybe 18 minutes or something with everything. And I'm not even kidding. Like maybe 18 minutes later, Chris texts me back. And he said, "Hey," he said, "Are you going to be at WrestleMania?" And I was out with my knee, but I was going to NXT to do a promo or something. And I said, "I think I have signings at WrestleMania. I think I'll be there." He's like, "Okay." He's like, "I'm going to talk to Vince about you being helping produce this match." So Jericho, I know the funny fable of him inventing a lot of things, but he did possibly invent me becoming a producer, because he tried twice within my first 4 years on the main roster.
That's crazy that far ahead.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, man. I appreciate that Chris saw that in me, and Johnny too, obviously. But it's funny that Chris, like I said, 5 months, July 09, I'd only been called up in February. It just was so funny. It was very funny that he saw that in me, and he had that vision.
What are some matches or moments that you've produced that you're proud of?
Oh man, so many. I mean, it would have happened regardless, but that the segment where Becky gets her face broken and she's up in the crowd, that was my segment.
Oh wow. That was pretty impactful on the career of Becky Lynch too.
That was insane. I remember she was so rocked and so concussed. And I remember I went and saw her in the trainer's room after, and then I drove on to SmackDown. But Natty and Sasha and Bailey, I believe, went to the hospital that night, and she didn't remember a whole lot, obviously, But I remember sending in a text to her, and I said, "What's so crazy is," because at that point she really had started climbing up, and I said, "What's crazy is this. You're gonna be more over after this." And she was like, "How? I'm hurt." And I was like, another guy that was, someone else who was hurt once. His name's Steve Austin. Have you ever heard of him? He was also hurt as he was started to climb too. And guess what? It kind of worked out for him a little bit. So, but I remember telling her, I said, "This is gonna really work out for you. I promise you." And that was, of course, not by design, but at all. It's just one of those things that it happens, and we just got to roll with it. And you can either use it or not, but it's one of the we used it, and look at what it did. I produced Bianca and Sasha at WrestleMania.
Okay.
I produced Charlotte, Becky, and Ronda at WrestleMania as well. This past one too, but it's still really fresh. But the last two Royal Rumbles, I was really proud of, San Antonio and the one here in Tampa or St. Pete last year. This one I'm proud of too. I just haven't had enough time to digest it yet.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Elimination Chamber in Montreal, I really liked a lot. A lot. There's a lot of matches. Becky and Bianca at WrestleMania 38.
Yeah.
30. Yeah, 38. Yeah, that was. I mean, I didn't have to do a whole lot. They already had it. I just sometimes give little tidbits here and there, especially when the talent's that good, like Bianca or Becky or Natty or so. Like with a lot of these talents, they're so good. I don't have to do a whole lot. I just either have to kind of just keep them on track on some things a little bit, and that I may not have articulated that. I may have to just throw in a couple seeds here and there. But the truth is, I mean, they're the ones doing the work, and I get to work with incredible people. And my first WrestleMania match was Seth, Miz, and Finn Balor in New Orleans.
Oh yeah, that was for the Intercontinental title.
Yeah. And so I was really proud of that. I was really proud of a lot of my work with Seth. Because when I got hurt from when I got hurt to when I become a producer, it's 2 years, little over 2 year window. So like I was a little shell shocked, and I'm going into this new role, and I haven't really been around wrestling and around like before I got hurt. I was on the road 5 days a week, and then the day and a half I was home, we were filming Total Divas. I was working 7 days a week, and then to zero, and then to be away from everything for so long, and then come back. It's a bit of a shell shock, and like it took me a while to get acclimated again, and not only get acclimated again, but now I'm also in a new role. And I give a lot of that credit to Seth. I got paired with Seth at some point early on. I mean, on screen, I give a lot of that to Seth. That behind the scenes, I mean, it was a team effort. It was Michael Hayes, Jamie Noble, Fit Finley. It was everybody helping me backstage. But on screen, my pairing with Seth really helped me out a lot, and really got me into a good groove, and then from there things just started feeling natural and just started happening. I felt really comfortable in this role, but I give a lot of that credit to Seth.
So you had mentioned how you've trained people in the past as well, and you run a wrestling school, but from what I understand, it's not a traditional wrestling school. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, it's like Fight Club or something. It's we run a school at the moment. Natty's on Raw and I'm on SmackDown. So in typical Hart fashion, typical Calgary fashion, we have one full day off a week together. The one full day off a week is Wednesday. It's also the day we go to the ring and train. The one full day we both have home together, we go to the ring. But so at the moment, Wednesday works best for us, just because, like I said, it's the one full day. It's. I had the idea, like I said, that I thought when my wrestling career ended, I would become a trainer. That obviously changed. But especially I still wanted a ring. I always wanted a ring. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world that Bret had a ring in his house. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I mean, Stu had his own rings. Bret had a WWF ring, which is exactly what I wanted. Then I wanted a WWE ring too. And so I had a warehouse. I got a warehouse about 20 minutes from my house in Zephyr Hills. And I remember I talking to Johnny about it. And then I finally sent Vince. They said, yeah, we're working on it with Vince. Then I sent Vince a text. Vince approved it. I text Johnny. He said, okay, show me. I screenshot it, sent it to Johnny. And I had a ring like 4 days later.
Oh, wow.
And I told Vince, I told the company, like, when I got this ring, I said, look, it was during the pandemic. I said, look, there's no live events right now. And just to kind of keep people sharp, I said, anytime you want to send a WWE person to my ring, the ring is open 24/7. That's part of my, like, it's not in writing anywhere, that part of the deal, but I said it. And so that I'm staying true to that. At any time, we've trained at 9 a.m. before for somebody. I remember they had Braid come and train Easter Sunday, and I got a group of guys, and we went there and trained, and then we trained again that Tuesday at like 9 a.m. before WrestleMania when he wrestled Orton, like that week. And so at one point we started just having like these crazy practices during the pandemic with like a lot of people. And it's hot. There's no air conditioning in there. And so like in the summertime, it is hot in there. It reminds me of the dungeon a little bit in that aspect, that the dungeon would be hot or cold, depending on what the weather was outside. Like there were pipes in that room and there was heat, but like only through those pipes. So if it was cold out, it was cold in that room. Your body warmed up, and then you felt okay. But it's kind of invite only for the most part. I've trained 2 guys there from scratch, which was a different task. It was a different task training people when I couldn't physically show them how it's done or physically do it with them. I had to only do it by verbalizing. I could show some things, like I can do some things like of a suplex. I can do most of it. I just can't do the fall part. I'm sure I can. It's not worth taking that risk. And how many of those do I have in me with my neck being fused? Who knows? And I don't really want to find out what that number is. So it was a bit of a different task training with just using my verbal skills, but now Natty's really taking it on. Now she likes being the leader in there and running the practice. And I mean, my rule still exists. Any WWE person can always come. He's been out for a little while right now, but Dawkins is a guy that's there all the time. Liv Morgan is someone that's come in a lot. Ashanti the Adonis, another guy that's in there a lot. Shotzi was just in there recently a few times. Like Electra Lopez. Like there's a lot of people, and I mean over time, a lot of people have come there. I mean, like most of the women's division from like 2021, 2022 has been in there. Yeah, we run our weekly practices. Natty runs a pretty tight ship in there, and it's invite only, but it's like I said, it's kind of like Fight Club. Like if someone that's already there will message me about or talk to me about a friend of theirs coming in. So like I always joke, everyone kind of has one pass to come in, and if you don't impress Natty, you may not get the invite back. And it's not that you weren't good, but just there's a certain standard because we do have so many WWE people in there that Natty wants to keep the practice rolling. She doesn't want to stop a whole lot. And we have a lot of people that want to come most weeks. A BFAB, I'm sorry. She's another one who's there every week. We have a lot of people in there. So if Natty were to say yeah to everybody, nobody would get any ring time. So she's got to be a bit judicial with the ring time and who can come and who can't. And it's not a personal thing. It just is what it is.
And someone else that you've worked with through that wrestling school is Brody Lee's 13-year-old son. And you tweeted a while back that he's already a true student of the game. What's that experience been like working with him?
He's nuts, man. He's nuts, that kid. He reminds me a lot of Harry when Harry was a kid. Harry just he just focused and fixated on wrestling. And I remember when I first met Harry, like Roddy Piper was his. I remember Ted telling me that Roddy, to guess who his favorite wrestler is, and I was like, well, his dad. And he said, no, it's Roddy Piper. And I was like, I remember asking Harry. Harry's like maybe 5 or 4 when I first met him. And I remember asking him, and he said, yeah, Roddy Piper. And I was like, okay. And he just fixated on wrestling so much. Like, he just loved everything about it. So it wasn't just watching it for his dad. You know what I mean? He loved it. And Brody is like that. This kid. I make jokes all the time, like we'll demo something, and then Natty will say, okay, let's see, Brody, you want to try it? And I said, well, we already know Brody's going to get it on his first try. We already know. And he does. And but not only that, like he pulled me aside maybe a month ago to lay out some I mean, keep in mind he just turned or is just about to turn 13. He's telling me some storyline he wants to do when he's like 18. And the funny thing is, man, he was like, okay, then this week I come out, then this happens. Then the next week I come out, then this happens. And I was like, this kid's 12. He didn't have all the beats laid out, but he also wasn't that far off from being there. Yeah. I was like, damn, he doesn't only get the in-ring stuff, this guy. And every week, so you'll be in the middle and you'll kind of it's a lot of conditioning and a lot of good work. And then at the end, the person who's in the middle, the person who's kind of exhausted, cuts a promo. And like Brody's really good at promos too. So like I don't know what eventually he's gonna, and he's only 12. his dad is big. This kid's gonna be tall and big. Like it's funny. I don't know. There's not gonna be anything he can't do. He's a prodigy. He's very special. He absorbs everything, and he has such close ties to like every wrestling company. He has good friends in WWE. He has good friends in AEW. So like he's not like biased like that. And I love seeing that in a kid, man. He loves wrestling and he loves his people. He loves these guys and they happen to work here, and he loves these guys and they happen to work here. He doesn't see it like that. And so I guess the more we could see through Brody's eyes, the better the world might be.
So gonna wrap up here pretty soon, but I did want to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite match from your career?
Man. There's a lot of almost like that triple threat with Dolph and Cesaro is really up there. I would have to say probably the match I got I love wrestling DX. I thought it was such a cool thing to be able to share a ring with Hunter and Sean. Especially we did the one in Orlando that aired on Christmas where we were the main event, which I thought was really awesome. It's the only time DX ever wrestled on SmackDown. I'd have to say the match I had I was on Superstars, but when Superstars was still on WGN, and it was with Rey Mysterio at we did it at a TV taping right before WrestleMania in Phoenix, where Bret and Vince. But we did it in San Jose. We did it in San Jose, and it was they did Raw. Then there were 2 Superstars matches, and then they filmed SmackDown for that week. And so we did Raw. Raw ended with like Shawn Michaels super kicking Undertaker up at the top of the ramp or something like that. Then it was like Punk versus JTG, and then I wrestled Ray. And the crazy thing is we had longer than Ray had in his match with Punk at WrestleMania, but it was the same kind of dynamic where it was like definitely not the same story. There was no story, but dynamic as in like he's wrestling Punk, and the Punk also had like Gallows and Serena. And I guess, not quite the same. He had also Mercury too, but we had Natty and Harry out there in ours, so we kind of played with that dynamic. And I just remember getting to the back, and like Sean and Vince both like standing up, clapping, giving me a standing ovation, and just saying what a great match it was. I remember seeing Jack Lanza that week because we all go from there. We're all together for the whole week. So like we went from there to Phoenix for WrestleMania. I remember running into Jack Lanza. And he was like, "Hey Tyson, I saw your match with Ray," and I was like, and he's like, "That was a hell of a match." And I was like, "Damn, Jack Lanza liked it." And he went out of his way to watch it on TV. I got a lot of mileage out of that match. Because we were all there that week, so a lot of people I remember Bret and Pat Patterson were there, and they both had really nice things to say about it. So I would have to probably say that match with Ray.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, TJ. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I really appreciate it, and thanks for all the great insight as well.
Oh, Clayton, it's been my pleasure, man. When you messaged me and you told me you were at Mount Royal, I thought, hell yeah, I'd love to do an interview with you. I love Calgary. I've lived here now for 18 years, but of course, I'm born and raised in Calgary, man. I love Calgary, and I have such fond memories of my time there, and I love going back. And so when I got a message, you kind of messaged me out of the blue, but I was like, you know what, man, I can appreciate that. And this guy's at Mount Royal, so absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who tuned in.
Thanks a lot.